What's the invention that truly defines humanity? It can be many things, depending on who you ask. Fire. The humble wheel. However, on the galactic scale, there's none as fearsome as nuclear weapons, something perfected after years of war and experiments that no other race could even hope to match. Weapons designed to tear apart the very fabric of the universe, to split atoms, to render anything they touch rubble for decades to come. For most, humans were a forgettable race. They were interesting, especially with their culture and deadly home planet, but there was nothing to truly set them aside from the rest. Unlike most races, who crashed onto the scene with grand aspirations only to see how outmatched they were compared to the rest, the humans were content to simply watch. Watch, learn, adapt, improve. They could be seen everywhere, but they were for the most part quiet. As a whole, of course, on the individual level, most humans were the loudest and most chaotic people in the room, with a penchant for telling tall tales of war and bloodshed. Tales of the world wars were always high in demand, as many races couldn't fathom the amount of death that went on in the tales and were curious about how the humans could come up with such gruesome stories. Even the human ambassador was laid back, and rarely came to the meetings. Supposedly a veteran of the most recent World War, she didn't care much about the other race's ambassadors, and thus they didn't care about her in turn. The ambassadors never shared their own names for security reasons. For a while, this went on as normal, until the humans started to bring out their ships. Unlike the beautiful gold-inlaid or fancy ships of the other races, they were cold, boxy things, metal nightmares that made anyone who gazed upon them uncomfortable. Each one, even the civilian ships, had many ports that were never seen open, but scanners detected absolutely nothing behind them, which led everyone to believe that they were simple fake-outs. After all, the humans were one of the weakest races physically. Of course, they would have some way to deter those who wanted to mess with them. Most simply just shrugged and continued walking, as the cold metal ships certainly were inelegant, but they weren't breaking any rules, really. Eventually, the ambassador of the Vokal, a small, many-armed insect race known for their lack of polite mannerisms, confronted the human ambassador at one of the few meetings she showed up to, unsurprisingly drunk. "Smoke and mirrors make for frail shields," he chirped, wringing 3 sets of his hands together. "All you are achieving is making everyone uncomfortable. Even we have ships that are pleasing to look at. You have monstrosities." The human ambassador laughed, setting down her bottle of alcohol. "Warships ain't made to be pretty. They're meant to put the fear of God in anyone you face, you know? Your fancy, shiny ships up on high. All that gold filigree ain't do shoot against swarm rockets." The vocal sighed. "Enough with the role-playing. Yes, you were supposed to be from the Great War or what have it, but there is no point in it now. Swarm rockets aren't even a thing. It's all but impossible to get rockets to fire more rockets." The human shrugged and took another drink of her alcohol, not replying. There were a few minutes of awkward silence before the meeting continued. The Terek representative, who led the race on the outskirts of the northeast quadrant, was the first to speak. "We have a problem," they said solemnly, ponderously placing a recorder on the table. It flickered on, revealing a veritable graveyard of Terek ships. "This is our outpost closest to Tau Ceti." The recorder flickered to a different scene of ruin. "A colony deeper inside our space." Another picture. Closer. Another. Even closer. The Terek stopped the slideshow now. "They are coming closer to us, clearing a path, as it were, straight through our territory and closing into the Ferrix." The Faric ambassador gasped. "No." The Terek nodded. "Yes. We need to stop them here and now, or they will destroy all we have built." "I can handle it," the human representative said lazily. "Or else my name ain't no." The Terek interrupted. "You know our rules. No names." The human sighed. "Fine. I could still wipe him out, though. Just say the word." The de facto leader of the ambassadors, that of the Telkan, spoke up now. "No. We will need a proper army if these threats are enough to crush the Terek. Smoke and mirrors will not be enough. Smoke and mirrors this, smoke and mirrors that." The human grumbled. "Fine. I'll step in if I feel it's needed, though." The Telkan nodded seriously, though it was clear she didn't think much of the offer. Of course. A month later, and another huge chunk of the line of destruction towards the center of Federation-operated space. At the end, however, an army had been assembled. Every race in the Federation had chipped in, aside from the humans, who were unsurprisingly nowhere to be found. Smoke and mirrors made for a frail shield. After all, in front of them was an army only half the size of their own, filled with ships not dissimilar to those of human design. At first glance, you might mistake one for the other, but they were indeed two separate ship designs. These ones had more sleek, angular designs with sloping hulls, and were designed for speed. Human ships were slower, more boxy, and almost exuded an aura of weight due to their construction. Aboard the capital ship of the Telkin fleet, Commander Tin opened communications. "We are Kraxil. This one is Tormund." A smooth, angelic being answered from the enemy ship. "This one offers you a bargain. Your complete surrender, and your captain will be spared." In the background, another Kraxil objected. "Commander, why offer them a deal?" In the background, the Kraxil had its head torn off in an instant as a shotgun blast shredded it apart. "This one makes the rules," Tormund said smoothly, as if they hadn't murdered their own crewmate. Then their face twisted into a wide, evil grin as they turned back to the camera. "Time is up. Defiance is punishable by extermination." Everything went downhill from there. Despite the angelic appearance of the Kraxil and the sleek and elegant design of their ships, they were anything but angelic. They brutally tore the fleet apart, saving the capital ships for last as if playing with their food. Even as his fleet died around him, erased by what appeared to be antimatter beams, another communication opened up. It was the human representative. "Told you I'd step in if things got rough," she said nonchalantly, wearing what appeared to be an old captain's hat that Commander Tin had seen in old images of Earth, the human home planet. "No. Run. You cannot do anything," Tin replied with a scowl. "They will tear you apart too. I may not like you humans, but I will not let you die under my command." The human just grinned. "Too late," she said, as she calmly opened up a new comm to something that Tin couldn't see. Under the authority of Rear Admiral Leslie Jones. "Weapons free, men." Tin listened in horror as loud cheers broke out from the comm system, and could only shake his head. He admired the bravery, at the very least. Shame that they would die too. "You love to talk about smoke and mirrors, don't you? Well, we have the steel to back it up." Steel fashioned into military-grade dreadnoughts. Leslie barked a laugh as the human ships exited hyperspace. The ships were boxy and brutal, typical human design, but on a massive scale. Their very exit from hyperspace seemed to tear space itself, turning it from a simple jump into an exit wound where hundreds of equally brutal ships waited. Without another word from Leslie, the ships opened fire, ports hissing open and rockets exploded outward. Marked on each one was an odd symbol with 3 arced slabs coming out of it at regular intervals. The rockets themselves were odd in design, boxy and cylindrical with no head to speak of, and the reason soon became apparent, as while still in flight, each opened up a dozen ports around it and fired off a salvo of even more missiles. In less than a few seconds, the entire battlefield, if you could call it that, had gone from a relatively calm patch of space to a nightmare storm of rockets and radiation. Ships went down in blazes of flame every moment, as the ambassadors watched in horror. The comm to the enemy ships flickered open once more, a look of pure panic on the Kraxil commander's face, before their eyes widened and they turned to see one of the hundreds of missiles crash into and through the ship, right into one of the hallways. For a moment, all was silent, then a wave of whistling death exploded outward, exploding down the hallway to the control room, followed soon after by roaring nuclear hellfire. The Kraxil comms cut out. Leslie spoke once more, still completely nonchalant. "Oh yeah, we made swarm missiles. Forgot to mention it."